I am Dr. Imtiazul Huda, Assistant Professor, Department of Islamic Studies. Today I will cover up the second lecture of the week third, that is about the Faraizi movement. This particular week, in this particular lecture, we will learn about the biography of the founder of the Faraizi movement, Haji Shariatullah, as has been recorded. He was born in the year 1781, which means toward the last quarter of the 18th century. He was born at the Faridpur district of East Bengal. Presently, this Faridpur district is situated in the Bangladesh, and as it has been shown in the map that this particular is situated here. So we can get an idea that this is there. Further, we can say that Haji Shariatullah belonged to the modest family, a very simple family, and which has a farming background. It means that his father and forefather were the farmers, and they were associated with the farming, as it was prevalent mostly during the 18th century in India. Majority of the people were engaged in the farming, as has been mentioned by many of the biographers of Haji Shariatullah. When he attained the age of 18, while he was studying in his native city, Faridpur, under the guidance of many Muslim scholars who taught him about the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and as well as the fiqh. So, as he attained the age of 18, he desired, that was in 1799, he desired to undertake a journey for the pilgrimage. And that pilgrimage is the Hajj. At the age of 18 years, Haji Shariatullah performed Hajj, and after performing Hajj, he stayed at Makkah and Medina. Sometime he spent at Makkah and sometime he spent at Medina. And it was here at Medina that he came in contact. He became familiar to the environment that was prevailing in the holy cities. As we have studied about the Wahhabi movement, that it was a time when Wahhabi movement has engulfed whole of Arabian Peninsula, and the teachings of the Wahhabi movement was strictly followed by the peoples of the Arabian Peninsula by that time. Because at Mecca and Medina, this region was taken as a part of the first Saudi state that was founded in 1745, and the ruler Muhammad ibn Saud had officially declared the Wahhabi creed as an official creed of the Arabian Peninsula. So, Haji Shariatullah, as he performed the Hajj, that's why he came to be known as Haji Shariatullah. He studied the tenets of the Wahhabi movement. He learned about the doctrines of the Wahhabi movement, and he got very much inspired by Wahhabi movement. As we studied about the Wahhabi movement, it talked about the monotheism, Tawheed. It talked about the shirk, how to reject the shirk, and what are the effects of the shirk. As it talked about that one should be firm on the articles of faith. So this had impressed Haji Shariatullah. Further, Haji Shariatullah tried to assimilate the teachings of the Wahhabi movement in him. Further, we can say that as he spent much of his time at Arabia, after living for almost 2 decades, in 1818 he returned back to his native city Faridpur. After returning back to his native city Faridpur, he started assessing the social, the political, the economic condition of his Bengali Muslims. And he had also observed very keenly about the customs and the traditions that were prevailing in the Bengali Muslim families or in the society. And what he has observed that his people had, or the Bengali Muslim had, got deviated from the true teaching and true message of Islam. So that's why after returning back from the holy cities, after thorough studying Islam, he laid foundation to his movement. And through his movement, he tried to talk about the obligatory duties. It means that he had stress on the farz, the obligatory duty, which is compulsory for every Muslim to follow. The main purpose, as Haji Shariatullah himself has specified, was to purify the Islam that was followed by the Bengali Muslim. As I have just said, the Bengali Muslims had adopted the culture of the different faith also. Especially, they were very much influenced by the Hindu customs and practices. And that Hindu customs and practices very much got involved in the customs of the Muslims. And they consider these customs verily the part of the Muslim customs. So Haji Shariatullah emphasized on to purify Islam and to just minimize the influence of the Hindu practices, customs, and traditions that had crept into the Muslims' social life in the region. Further, Haji Shariatullah had talked about what he learned in Arabia, the concept of Tawheed. By the custom of Tawheed, his views was almost similar to the views of the Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, the founder of Wahhabi movement, that one should strictly emphasize on Tawheed, and the concept of the Tawheed stands for not to associate any partners with Allah Almighty, neither considering any other thing worthy to worship other than Allah. That's why he had emphasized on monotheism. He believed that monotheism is the crux of Iman, crux of Tawheed. Without this one, we can't be or we can't remain a Muslim. Like the Wahhabi movement, he also emphasized on the practices that were deemed to be un-Islamic. It means any sort of innovative thing that can't be proved in the light of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are to be considered as un-Islamic. So he talked in detail the concept of Tawheed as that was discussed by Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. He had made a public appearance. He started calling people toward Tawheed and talk with them in detail that why one should be firm on Tawheed, what is the purpose of Tawheed, and how we can perfect ourselves. Further, he had also emphasized on rejecting the local customs, especially the syncretic elements that has got absorbed from the different religious groups of the Bengal, which Muslims had considered as an integral part of their custom. So he emphasized that the Muslims should reject all these things. They should strictly follow the custom that are very much in conformity with the teaching of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Further, we can say the teachings and the ideas of Haji Shariatullah gained followers and supporters because he started making a public call, and simultaneously he started visiting the people one by one, discussing about their aqidah, discussing about their practices, and calling them toward the true teaching of Islam. The way he has presented, the people of his place got admired. They admired him that truly he is talking about reverting us to the original teaching or the root of Islam. Like the Wahhabis, he also talk about the self, that one should follow only that much that is or that were practiced by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu and the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Further, his movement had a deep impact, a significant impact on the religious and social landscape of the Faridpur district. Many people of the Faridpur, of his native place, learned the true Islam from Haji Shariatullah. And they further started preaching the true Islam to the adjoining areas. As I have said earlier, that this particular movement was started in the eastern part of the Bengal. Presently, if we try to find out the region, we can find out this region is situated in the modern Bangladesh. And this particular region was very fertile for the movement of Haji Shariatullah, because he hadn't talked anything wrong. He talked about the welfare of the people, for the well-being of the people. He talked about the religious well-being. He talked about the social upliftment. He talked about the economic upliftment. As he addressed these things in a very short span of time, he had numerous followers and supporters. Haji Shariatullah died in 1840 AD at a place called Nawabganj, that is situated in the capital of Bangladesh, Dhaka. After the death of Haji Shariatullah, his movement did not stop. His movement, which he himself had named as the Faraizi movement, stressing upon the first the obligatory duties, continued to flourish and blossom under the able guidance of Mohsinuddin Ahmad, often called as Zuzu Miah, who was the son of Haji Shariatullah. And it was Zuzu Miah or Mohsinuddin Ahmad who had played an instrumental role in the development of the movement. Here I must say, during the lifetime of Haji Shariatullah, the nature of Faraizi movement was a socio-religious one. But after the death of Haji Shariatullah, this particular movement took the form and the shape of the religio-political movement. Now, this particular movement transformed from the nature of socio-religious to religio-political one. Hence, after the demise of Haji Shariatullah in 1840 AD, the movement flourished. Let's have a glance over the views and the beliefs of Haji Shariatullah. What were his views? The very important thing is that his beliefs were deeply rooted in his particular understanding of Islam, the way he had understood Islam. And it was his desire to reform and to purify the practices of the Muslim community of the East Bengal. And on the basis of this one, we can infer that, or we can understand that Haji Shariatullah believed that the state of the Muslim in British India, or the status, the condition of the Muslims in the British India, was almost like that they were living in the land of enemies. Because everything were against them. They were subjected to tyranny. They were not given the religious freedom. They can't promote their faith. They can't even practice their faith freely. So at that time, in the region of East Bengal, that was under the control of the Britishers, as we discussed in the first lecture. After the Battle of Plassey, the region was captured by the Britishers, and whole the affairs of the region were controlled by the Britishers. For everything, the Muslims had to look toward the Britishers, and they were causing trouble for the Muslims. Further, Haji Shariatullah saw the political and the social condition of the Muslims in India as unfavorable, was not in favor of the Muslims, and very much distant from the Islamic principle. Because the concept of the Britishers and as well as the landlords, the local landlord, were somehow imposed on the Muslims of the East Bengal. That why he considered that the political and the social condition was not in favor of them. Further, on the basis of this one, he developed an idea, a thought, that offering the congregational prayers like the Friday, like the Eid's prayer, the lesser and the greater Eids, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Azha, cannot be performed in congregation because they are living in Darul Harb. And as per the condition of the Darul Harb, a Muslim cannot perform their prayers, can't celebrate the festival, and whatsoever they had to do by their own. There should be no congregational prayer. So he was of the opinion that the Friday and the Eid prayer should not be performed in congregation. Likely because it could be seen as a form of religious approval of the ruling non-Muslim authorities. As I have said, for this one they needed an approval of the authority. whether they can offer their prayer or not in public, whether they can celebrate their festival in public or not. So that's why for everything they had to look toward the Britishers. They had to seek permission from the Britishers and the local landlords. That's why he considered the land as a Darul Harb, where the congregational prayer can't be offered in public. Further stressing about his views and beliefs that his primary and the main goal was to steer the Muslim community so that they can understand the importance of the first. That while living in this land, which has become the Darul Harb, it is the duty of every Muslim to be very firm on first. They had to believe that the first is an obligatory duties that they had to perform. Now, are the first? The first one, having faith in the Allah Almighty, the Tawheed of Allah Almighty. Have a faith in the Prophet of Islam. Have a faith in the divine, the revealed books. Have faith in the angels. Have faith in the Qadr on the last day and the life after Yawm al-Qiyamah, after the doomsday. And furthermore, it is also obligatory to offer 5-time daily prayer, not in a congregation, individually. They had to fast. They had to pay zakat and even had to give the alms for the needy people so that they can also get benefits of it and they can also do something for their good for this thing. And also they should also perform the Hajj. So he emphasized on the purification of oneself in the light of the Islamic teaching. That's why he emphasized on the first. Further, as he has emphasized on first, as I had just talked about it, that he himself had named it as the Faraizi movement because it was focused on promoting the fulfillment of the obligatory acts among the Muslim community of population. Further, we can say the movement was to strengthen religious observance and adherence to the Islamic principles. This was his main belief and idea, that it was to strengthen the religious that every Muslim should be a religious one. They should strictly follow their faith. They should strictly avoid all the un-Islamic practices. And just because of this one, they will become a good and pious and as well as devout Muslim. Further, we can say the Faraizi movement has also supported the idea of jihad. Here, the term of jihad has been used to strike against any sort of oppression. What Haji Shariatullah observed, that the Muslims were subjected to the oppression. So it is necessary for them to conduct a jihad against any oppression. If there is no need for the jihad, if there is any sort of oppression, the tyranny, then they can conduct jihad. As well as that through jihad, they can unite the Muslim community on the principles of Islam. And if they will get united, then definitely they can restrain the oppressor from doing oppression on them. It's just to refrain the oppressor. So that's why the Faraizi movement believe in the jihad also, for the welfare, for the well-being of the Muslim community who are suffering at the hand of the oppressors. Thank you.